Hello everyone, I'm Helen from Wildlife World and I'm joined this evening by three very special guests. The first is this lady. This is Mary from Help A Hedgehog Hospital in Gloucestershire, and she actually works just up the road in Tetbury. Say hello, Mary.
Hello, hello.
Could you tell us a little bit about the extra special guests that you've brought along this evening?
I can, yes. I have two hedgehogs here ready to be released. The first one is a female, and she was found here by one of the employees at Wildlife World in a very poorly state. It's a female, on the 15th of July, and I was called, I popped up, and I have to say I was very concerned. The hedgehog was in a very poor state, very dehydrated, very wobbly, not good. Anyway, I took her home, I was able to give her some fluids, and a couple of days later I was able to test a fecal sample to discover that she had a really bad case of lungworm and also roundworm. Anyway, I'm very happy to say I was able to treat those conditions and she's ready to go now. It's really important, if we can, with hedgehogs to put them back where they came from. She will know this area, and what I'm also able to do is I was very fortunate. A young man who was working at the potting shed in Crudwell discovered three very tiny babies. Sadly, we don't know what happened to Mum, but the babies were wandering around in the day very close to the road, and I've had those babies, and I have one of them here today who's now at the right weight to go and is a boy. What we like to do is we don't tend to put babies back where they came from because we don't necessarily know we've got all the babies and we don't want them interbreeding. So we always like to, if we can, put hedgehogs back where they came from, but also to put a boy and a girl in an area to try and boost the existing population of hedgehogs.
Can we have a little look at them?
Yes.
Do you mind? Oh wow.
So this is the female.
This is the one that was found here.
Indeed, yeah. And as I say, very poorly, very thin, very wobbly, staggering, very dehydrated, really flat.
Is lungworm normal for hedgehogs, a growing concern?
It's something they often suffer with, and we only treat it if the hedgehog is suffering from the symptoms of it. We only treat hedgehogs if they need healing. We don't, we wait until when they come in to test their poo effectively to see what's going on. So that was why I waited until she'd eaten something and was able to produce something. And it was a particularly nasty case, but she responded really well to the treatment, as you can see, because she did not look like this when she came in. And she's now, she's thriving and ready to go back to the wild so that she can settle in again before hibernation. So she will remember where she's come from, and this was the fabulous place where she was found. So it's a real thrill to be able to put her back where she came from.
What's the stage at which we should call a hedgehog hospital?
Basically, hedgehogs are truly nocturnal. So a hedgehog out in the day is always a case for alarm. And what people should do is get a trug similar to this. It needs to be something that has steep sides. Hedgehogs, even when poorly, are extremely good escape artists. A shoebox is not the right container. So something like this, a trug or your recycling box, pop some newspaper in it, and if the hedgehog is cold, a hot water bottle or a milk bottle filled with warm water just to keep it warm. Don't attempt to put food or water in. Make sure you've caught it before you call a rescue, similar to us, because often what happens is people race indoors, pick up the phone us, and by the time they've gone back, the hedgehog has disappeared, because often very poorly hedgehogs will try and take themselves off and hide under cover. So the rule of thumb really is a hedgehog out in the day. Hedgehogs are quite tricky to look after, and we're all trained, and they're not, we really don't want members of the public taking hedgehogs in and thinking they can help them, and then unfortunately after a few days when the hedgehog has really gone downhill, we get the call, and often the hedgehog is too far gone for us to be able to help.
So what are we going to do with her now? Do we just let her go?
Yes, yeah. Obviously we're releasing her in the early evening because this is when she would be waking up and being active. We wouldn't release a hedgehog during the day. So we're going to tuck her in under this undergrowth here, which is perfect. There'll be lots of natural food for her here, and she can have a, rummage around, find somewhere, to find some food. And hopefully she will remember that she came from here, because this was not very long ago. As I say, it was the 15th of July, and she's an adult, so she'll remember that this is where she's from.
Okay.
And have a happy life. So
Shall we say goodbye to her?
Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to tuck her under here. She might just be a little bit shocked at first. They often stay where they are put for a little while, but she'll be able to smell now that she's back here and that she's out of the hutch that I was obviously keeping her in. Yeah.
And what about the baby? Will we release the baby with her?
I'll put it quite nearby. Now this obviously it's a grown-up baby now.
Yes. Was there anything specific that you had to do? Was it really just
literally no? I mean, when they came in, they hadn't been weaned, so I had to syringe feed the 3 babies. But what we do is very quickly, it's much better if they can feed themselves. So we use puppy milk because hedgehogs are lactose intolerant. So you would never ever give a hedgehog real milk, cow's milk. So we have special powder we make up, and we make what we call a slop. We use, when they first came in, I used Hill's AD, which is a special mousse that we get from the vets, and it's very palatable. They eat it and digest it very easily. And as you can see, I mean, when he came in, he was about this big, and he's now well over 650 grams and ready to go. Now, he clearly didn't come from this area, but we know there are hedgehogs here, clearly, because the female was found here, and it's a boy, so it's good that we're putting a boy back into the wild. And he's very well. He was not poorly. I have checked his poo and it's completely clear.
And presume no chance of any birth now. They'll sort of hang around now for hibernation. They won't look to breed.
Hedgehogs do. I mean, I've been doing this now for 10 years, and every year we are busier and busier in the autumn because, unfortunately, because of climate change, we often have very warm Septembers, and unfortunately then they do breed again. And that's why we're always very, very busy in the autumn taking in little ones, because although when they're born it'll be warm and there's food, as we get closer into November and December, their natural food becomes less and less available as it gets colder, and then their instinct takes over to hibernate, and they're not big enough. So we take them in the autumn and we overwinter them, get them up to the right weight. And as I say, in all the 10 years I've been doing this, the majority of the hedgehogs I have in do hibernate. We don't restrict, we always provide them with food, so we don't take food away. We keep them in hutches and we provide them with food and water. And literally, my hospital is in my garage and it doesn't freeze, but I can get down to 5 degrees, and I know when it gets down to that sort of temperature, they'll all go to sleep. I often have 1 or 2 that don't hibernate, and that does happen in the wild. So it's really important that people continue, if they're supporting hedgehogs in the wild, to please continue doing that all year round, particularly water, because often on a mild day in the winter, a hedgehog might wake up and be looking for something to eat and something to drink, which is really important. We often get phone calls from people saying, I'm really worried there's a hedgehog active in my garden, but it's a mild period, and as we know, we haven't really had recently any really prolonged cold spells in the winter. Last year, as a rescue, because there are 3 of us in our rescue that have hospitals, we had 130 hedgehogs that we overwintered, and they were all successfully released in the spring.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And all the rescues will be busy doing that. We take little ones in, and that's when we really rely on the public effectively interfering with hedgehogs, doing what hedgehogs do naturally and being active at night. But if a hedgehog, there's a lot of debate about the weight, but a hedgehog out in the wild, if it's under 450 grams or under, really needs to come into a rescue. So what we ask people to do if you see a little one out at night is to weigh it and then give us a call, and we'll decide whether that hedgehog needs to come in. Because if we do have a really cold winter, they just won't survive. They'll go off to sleep and they don't have the fat reserves in order to survive. And of course we can never really predict what the winter's going to do. So this one, as you can see, is quite feisty. He's thinking, what are you doing?
Yeah, and he looks a decent weight, so should we let him go as well?
Yes. So I'm going to pop him over here. And as you can see, he's completely wild. Although when they come in and they're babies and we hand feed them, they don't become tame. They very quickly revert to being feisty and curl up when you approach and everything, which is really good. Because they absolutely, well, it's illegal anyway to keep a European wild hedgehog as a pet, but they would not make good pets. They're very messy, and they're nocturnal. So, yeah, hedgehogs need to be in the wild.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Really kind of you to share the story with us.
Thank you.